Let's Talk Ministry with Pastor Dennis Martin, where we talk everything and all things ministry.
Well, hey everybody, it's Pastor Martin, and we are live today, and we're here to Let's Talk Ministry with Pastor Dennis Martin. It is Wednesday. I absolutely love this time. I love these chances and opportunities to talk with you, and we talk ministry on today. Well, as we are gathering and getting together, and those of you that are joining us, and those of you that would join me later, certainly I am blessed and favored of God to have you with us. I want you to do me a favor. If you're watching on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button, also the bell that you can get notifications whenever we're on live. Also on Facebook, please get it where you can get a reminder, a notification when we're on live on Wednesdays. And also we're on Periscope, and we're just grateful to have you with us as we get ready to talk ministry. Please do me a favor, share it with someone today. Let them know that we are on and that we are live today. And I know that it'll be a blessing to those of you that are in ministry as we're going to get started and get going today. We are going to do basically really a continuation of where we started on last week, where we were talking about wisdom in and out of the pulpit. You know, sometimes as we deal with ministry can be complicated sometimes, and it can be a stressful thing. Sometimes ministry has a lot of different things that are going on with it, a lot of different factors that are going on. And sometimes when we're dealing with ministry, sometimes we need those that would be somewhat mentors in our lives to do things. And I was blessed and favored of God to have mentors coming up, and those that shared and poured into my life when it came to ministry. So there was a lot of things that, of course, I somewhat feel that I had an advantage on, because I had access to those that had been in ministry 20 and 30 years ahead of me. So I was able to get to them and talk to them. And when something I was getting ready to do, or maybe a decision I was getting ready to make, I was able to tap in on their wisdom and make a choice or a decision whether to do certain things or not. So those things have certainly been a blessing to me, and I know that many times they'll be a blessing to others. And so the purpose of Let's Talk Ministry with Pastor Dennis Martin is really to share with you the wisdom and things that we've gathered, and the experience that we've had over the years, that we can have discussions and talk about it. Sometimes you just need someone to maybe say something or share an experience that they've had that will bless you and that will help you in your endeavor in ministry today. So that is the purpose of this. It's not the purpose to get a following. It's not the purpose to start something. No, it's the purpose to share. I found out that most people don't share things. Years ago, when I used to do business and I was doing some business things, I was selling things years ago, watches and other stuff. And I never forget, I met a brother in California that was in business. And he did something that most people don't do. And he sat down without a charge. And I know you can make a lot of money doing these things today. But he sat me down and he began to talk to me about business, how to do certain things in business, where to go find certain merchandise, how to do it, and where to go. And that really established and helped me to do the things I needed to do. And oftentimes when you are in ministry, sometimes people want you to come to conferences and other things, and nothing wrong with that. But sometimes people don't have the resources, the finances, the money always to do that. And so sometimes someone coming along to share some nuggets with you to help you can really give you a boost, or give you a start on something you're trying to do. Most people, when they start in ministry, if they're starting churches or whatever, if they're not in an organization under a bishop or whoever, a leader, sometimes they don't know the things they need to do when they get started. The same way when some people get in the ministry as evangelists, they don't know what they need to do, how they need to start. And sometimes you just need someone that can share that information with you to get you started. And so this is the purpose of what we do here on Let's Talk Ministry with Pastor Dennis Martin. So today, let's go back into part 2 about wisdom in and out of the pulpit. I know that there are some things we don't like to discuss. I know there's some discussions we don't like to have, but there's some things we have to talk about because it's important for us to keep the integrity of ministry and the accountability of ministry, because understanding that sometimes when we don't have that, when we don't have accountability, when we don't do those things that keep and hold us accountable, then we have a lot of things that happen. And one of the things that happens when we are not using wisdom and being accountable and using integrity and all of those things, it affects everybody. Now, I know most people don't like to admit that, but one person doing something can affect all of us. It doesn't matter what your name is or who you are. One thing, a person can do one thing, people can do something, and it affects all of us that are in ministry, because the world and people that don't go to church, they don't single out ministries. They don't single out a person. They don't say, well, this one did that or that. They don't single you out like that. When they single you out, they put every one of us in the same category. They put every one of us in the same bag. All of us are just we're in one bag, and they just say preachers. They don't say Pastor Martin. They don't say this one here. They say everybody's put in that same bag as preachers. So it's just a preacher thing. And so when they start looking, so when one is not accountable, when one does not hold up integrity, then every one of us are put in the same bag and done like that. If one doctor messes up, most people will say all doctors. When one police mess up, most people say, well, I don't trust any police. Why? Well, because they're putting everyone in the same bag or in the same thing. And so we have to be mindful of that to understand when we're talking about using wisdom in and wisdom out of the pulpit, it affects all of us if we don't use wisdom. So we have to be able to talk accountability, have to be able to talk integrity, and have to be able to deal with character in and out of the pulpit. A lot of people have strong suits in the pulpit. They great preachers in the pulpit. They are great pulpiteers. They know how to get the word out. They know how to say it. And the Lord said to Joshua, we know how to do that in the pulpit. And then sometimes we go off in the pulpit. But then there's times that we're not in the pulpit. But I said to you last week, even though we're not in the pulpit physically, even though we're not in it and we're outside of the pulpit, we're still connected to the pulpit. So you're never disconnected from the pulpit with our actions, with the way we act, with our character, with our integrity, with our accountability. We're still always connected to the pulpit. Some people don't see you any other way. I know you won't be seen the other way. You want people to, when I'm not in the pulpit, I'm not in the pulpit. That may be true. But in some people's eyes, you are connected to the pulpit, whether you're in the pulpit or not. You are always in the pulpit and connected. Your actions always lead back to the pulpit. Your actions always lead back to where people identify you at. Because everyone does not identify you outside of the pulpit. They identify you with the pulpit, even though you're outside the pulpit. It's like an actor. If you look at those old movies or whatever, there's certain people that played certain parts in movies, and sitcoms. You don't see them outside of that, no kind of way. The only way you see them is in that sitcom. When you see them, notice when we see people in the street that may be actors in movies and stuff, we don't address them, even though we may know their real name. We don't address them by their real name. We address them by the name that they played. Like, for instance, if you look at the person that played Mr. Brown, if you saw him in the street, you know his name is David Mann. But when you see him in the street, what is first thing you say? There go Mr. Brown. Now, he has none of the clothes on that would associate him with the character, but that's how you associate him. That's how I associate him, because he's still connected to Meet the Browns, because he played that character, Mr. Brown. And so you're always connected that way. So no matter whether you're in the pulpit or out of the pulpit, if you're out of it, it still connects you to the pulpit. So let's get into this, and I promise not to be long, but let's just share this for just a little bit. Out of the pulpit. I want to deal more or less with out of the pulpit today, because I believe it's important. Most of us have mastered the in the pulpit things, and we'll deal with some of those too. But out of the pulpit. Now, this is, we're being transparent. I'm going to talk to you today. I'm giving you what my opinions or what I think certain things are. Of course, we saw something played out even this week. As I'm talking, we saw something played out where one of the well-known evangelists went to a certain city to do a revival or to do a night service, and some things happened with the hotel room. And so the next thing we knew, on social media, it was a blow up on social media. This thing was it's played out for the last 2 days, especially with the vloggers. Everything is played out. And so one came on to express how they felt and how they felt violated. I'm not here to take either side. Then there was a rebuttal I wouldn't call it a rebuttal because it wasn't with an attitude. There was something that was said that was not the way it happened. Well, unless I was there, I don't know. If we went to court, hearsay wouldn't win a case. It would have to be something that would be proven. That's first thing. But now, here's what I want to share with you when we're dealing with outside the pulpit. There's some things we deal with when we deal with conflict outside of the pulpit. Those of us that are ministers, first of all, must remember that there is a way that we do things outside of the pulpit, even when we deal with conflict. And those of you that want to watch one of my other lives, I've done 2 of them over the last 8 months on how to deal with conflict in ministry. You can certainly go back and watch those. But how to deal with this conflict. There's a conflict. There's a difference. Something didn't go down or whatever. So out of the pulpit, let me share with you that the first way we deal with those type of things is not by social media. It is not by this program here. It is not by going live. Now, I know sometimes we do that, but that's not how we deal with it. If something is done in a private setting, if something is done privately, then you deal with it privately. Now, if it's an offense that's done publicly and somebody did something publicly and everyone knows about it, or it's public and it's on say it's social media, somebody came on social media and dogged you out, you can still deal with it privately if you want to, or you can deal with it publicly to go back and to address what they did to you publicly. But when it's private and it's not that known, it's not out, and it's between the 2 parties or 1 or 2 others, the Bible tells us how to do that. He says, if you know that your brother got ought against you, then when you come to bring your gift, lay your gift at the altar and go be reconciled with your brother. And then if he will not hear thee, he said, you'll gain your brother if you do it. But if he will not hear thee, then you take 2 or 3 with you as witnesses. And then you go and discuss the matter. Most of the time we do it and we preach, and we should know better. We do things backwards. We don't go first to our brother. Our first means, our first line of defense, our first line is to go on social media and to say and to do things. And sometimes we put it out there, not understanding that it's outside of the pulpit, but it's still affecting inside the pulpit, because everyone on social media is not saved. Everyone on social media don't go to church. Some people, they don't go to church. They ain't trying to go to church. They're not in church. And so when you start doing stuff and saying stuff outside of it and doing stuff, it gives them pause. It gives them to say, this is the reason I don't go to church. Why? Because look how they treat each other. Look how they do stuff. And then it opens up another can of worms, as my grandmother used to say. And now you got to deal with that. So we've got to do better outside of the pulpit in how to deal with conflicts. Last year, someone had said something, and it wasn't inappropriate, just their thoughts, I guess, about me or whatever. And someone shared it with me. And so when I saw the person, I pulled them to the side and we talked about it. And they said, well, I never made that statement, da, 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 da. And I'm not going to tell you whether I believe they did it or not, but I talked to them and I went directly to them. Now, it would have been easy for me to take to social media and just go off, just go to the left and do it that way. And other people that are looking would be affected. You see, we keep forgetting that ministry is not about us. I think that that's one of the problems we got today. Everyone thinks that ministry is about us. We think it's about what we do. We think it's about our legacy. We think it's about us. Ministry is about what God has called us to do and the assignment that he's given to us. It's not about building a kingdom for ourselves and all of those things. And so when we start getting into ourselves about stuff, then we start handling stuff the way the world would handle stuff. And we should be setting the example on how to handle stuff outside of the pulpit. We should not be handling stuff the same way the world does. I can't get no amens up in here today. We should not be handling stuff the way the world does. Shouldn't do it. Should not do it. I don't care what your beef is. And all of us probably have been guilty, maybe guilty some more. But at some point, wisdom has to kick in, especially those of us that are in ministry, has to kick in where we will not be in or out of the pulpit and publicly displaying stuff and then wondering why people looking at the whole church funny and why people don't want to come to church, because we're airing our differences on the wrong platform. We haven't even had the first conversation, which is a private conversation we should have with someone that has been an offense to us. Amen. That's the first thing we should do. First thing. That's first thing. We should do that. As those that have given us, we need to do that. So we got to learn to deal with conflict better. So when we talk about wisdom in and out the pulpit, say to yourself, I've got to deal with conflict better out of the pulpit. I got to deal with it better. And another way you don't deal with it, you don't take friends to settle conflicts out of the pulpit. You don't take the people that agree with you, because all of us got some people that love us and they'll agree with most of the stuff we say and they will take our side. You need some people that don't have no dog in the fight that can just tell you you're wrong. And every one of us need, I'm going to be preaching that soon. And I'm sure some of you are when I tell you what it is. You need to really start looking at who your real friends are, because real friends tell you the truth. And they don't care about hurting your feelings. They don't care if you speak to them ever again. Real friends will help you by telling you the truth. Okay? So that's the first thing. Then number two sort of ties in with the first one, and that is social media itself. When we do social media, we have to understand, even though we're out of the pulpit, we're doing social media, and social media is for a ministry, and for those of us that are ministers, should be a positive thing to be a positive thing in people's lives. We should not take it and use it as a negative thing that causes more conflict and causes more division. We've got to do a better job when it comes to social media. I know social media is new to a lot of us, a lot of people. I used to do TV, and I was able to edit stuff out. But in social media lives, we're pushing stuff out, and we're assuming. Facebook, the last time I checked, is not a Christian social media platform. They may have Christians on it, but it's not. Everybody's on here. So when you go to saying stuff on social media and then people identify you with the pulpit, then it affects everybody. So you can't do that. Then you got to know when you put something on social media that it don't go away. You can't get rid of that. It don't fall off. So you got to watch what you're putting on social media, especially in ministry. Ladies, you got to watch the pictures you post, how you dress, and men, and you watch all that, because it never goes away. People, the one thing that I learned about social media in the marketing area of social media, and especially lives, and I learned this from some professionals, and that is this. When you're doing live, now there's some of you watching me on live right now, and while you're watching me live, I'm looking at the number, I can see how many watching me, and that's wonderful. But that's not really the number sometimes that when people go live, they look for. They look at who watches it later, because most people that don't watch it now will watch it later, and they'll watch it not maybe today. They may watch it tomorrow. They may watch it next week. They may watch this live next year. Because guess what? Next year it'll still be online. It'll still be on here. It's like people that pass that have pages on Facebook and different places. Their pages, unless somebody else was controlling them, their pages don't shut down. You can go back, and they've been deceased 5 years, and you can go back on their page, and even though they're not allowed to post anything, their page is still alive. So when you put some on social media, it don't die. It don't go away. Because somebody else maybe is copied it by now, it don't go away. So you got to be mindful when you put some on. Are you willing to put it on for the long term? Or is this just something you wouldn't have put on? So that's why sometimes even with social media, we can't get on here in our feelings. Not only with video live, but also with our post. We can't get on with our feelings because it doesn't go away. And believe me or not, some of the things we post can affect us in some of our future endeavors. It can affect us. When I think of Esau and Jacob, Jacob received the blessing. Esau sold his birthright. And I preached this message years ago. He sacrificed his future on the altar of the present. Sometimes you got to be careful that you don't get so into your feelings and self that you hurt yourself for the future. People have hurt themselves for job promotions on the physical jobs that people go on and see their posts about something. One young lady had got a job about, she was going to be doing something in daycare, but then she posted, she got hired, and then she posted how she didn't like kids. And the person that hired her happened to be on Facebook, saw her post, and then took the job back and said, I'll take our offer back. We're not going to hire you. Why? Social media. You got to be careful with that. So you got to be careful how you deal with social media as it relates to ministry and the things you post. You never know what it's going to affect down the line, because nothing is better to be used against you than your own words. Nothing is better to be used against you in the court. When you go to court, if they can prove you said it, if they got a videotape, if they got a recording, you said it. They don't need witnesses if they got you saying what you said. So when you record it, when you put it out there, just understand, if it doesn't go away, someone screenshots it or someone records it and then play it later, it could hurt your chances for a whole lot of stuff. So you have to be very careful with that. Number 3, there's been great questions about whether a person should go to a revival or not, whether you should take a revival. God bless you, Bishop Wright. Whether you should take a revival or not. Well, here's the thing: you always look to see whether you should take a revival. You're in control of that in taking a revival. This is outside the pulpit. If you got people that deal with your bookings and stuff, then those are people that you need to talk to. But you should always decide whether you should go or not. No one forces you to go and do revivals or do a night anywhere. You're not forced. Though no one puts a gun to your head and say you go to Memphis. No one puts a gun to your head and say you go to Texas. Nobody does that. And most of the times, if you've got large ministries and stuff, and you're well known, most of the time you got other people that handle your booking engagements. And sometimes they just give you the schedule where you're gonna be. Sometimes you don't even say, well, yeah, I'll take that. They just sort of give you the schedule, and they've got your whatever your requirements are, send it out, and people request for you to come. So it's up to you whether you go or not. Again, no one forces you to go anywhere. This is outside the pulpit. No one forces you. So if no one forces you to go anywhere, then you shouldn't, blast people and talk about them when you took the engagement without properly finding out where you were going and who the persons were, what the church was, and what it represented. Hey, and I'm just shooting straight. I've been doing this 43 years. I'm just telling you straight. If you want to go, you go. If you don't, then you tell them I can't accept that, or I can't take that. You just don't do that. I was invited years ago. Pastor asked me to come to a church to run a revival, and he said, "Can you come?" I said, "Sure, I'll be happy to come." And then his next statement gave me pause. And his next statement was when I decided I wasn't going. Well, what did he say? His next statement to me was, he said, well, can you raise money? And so right away, I assumed that what he was going to want was me raising money. His emphasis was going to be on this being a money revival, a money raising revival. And so I respectfully declined that engagement. I never went to that engagement, didn't have no problem not going, because I didn't want to put myself under pressure of raising an offering. Now, I can't raise offerings. I was trained and taught in all aspects of ministry when it comes to that, even raising offerings. I can give you a whole sermon on offering. I can do all that. My uncle taught me well. So I don't have a problem with that, and have raised money and done well in these years of ministry. But now I didn't go because I didn't want to be under that kind of pressure. I didn't want that on me, so I decided not to go. Then I have been to engagements. I did go to one engagement years ago, and it was on me. And I've never blasted the pastor. I could have, but I never did. But I didn't take I took the engagement, and I never forget, one of my friends called me. It was in a state up north, and one of my friends called me and said, I heard you're supposed to be in this city, or this town. I said, yeah, I'll be there next week in revival. Now, I'm a full-time evangelist, and he began to explain to me about the church. He told me about some things at the church and things that were happening, and I decided to go on. So I went on. Well, when I got there, when I was picked up at the airport, the pastor said to me, he said, we're going to take you to, you'll stay with me and my wife in our house. And I said to him, well, Pastor, usually I don't stay at the homes of the pastor, at the house of the pastor and his wife. I have done it before, but I prefer to stay in the hotel. So he took me to the hotel. We stayed in the hotel. During that time, the NBA playoffs was on. I believe the Chicago was playing Portland in the final. So when church was over, I would just stop and get some at a Burger King or something and go back to the room. And then they picked me up at church and everything. I think I went out one night or whatever. But at the end of the week, when they got ready to do business and settle up, the pastor said to me, he gave me a list of everything, and he took off the top of what we had raised. He took off the top money for gas. And then he took off the money for all the meals that I ate at Wendy's and Burger King or wherever I ate at. And then he took off the top for the parking attendant, watching the parking lot, and some other stuff. And so I asked him, I said, well, Pastor, I'm sort of confused. I said, I'm just asking for clarity. Why are you taking money out for gas when I did not drive? He said, oh, that's for the gas of picking you up at the airport and then picking you up every night for church. Well, you know, that was many, many years ago. But what I'm saying to you was, so I understand about the contract thing too. That's how we got into that. I understand that. But what I'm saying to you is, I stepped into that after knowing the situation. I walked into it anyway. And so that was me. I walked into that. So you got to determine whether you're going to go somewhere or not. And there's nothing wrong with asking if you don't do contracts or whatever, asking of what they're going to do. When people call me and ask me, can you come? What is your requirement? I said a round trip ticket, a hotel, and not one of them where they slipping in and out all night, a nice hotel. And I'm good. And either I tell them a price or either I trust them, especially if I know them, I said, and be fair. And most of the time, I haven't had any problems. People have done right about me over the years. And so I'm grateful for that. And I only had a couple of places, a couple of things that may have happened that I could tell you about, where I've got one place I did a revival, I got a trophy. Yeah, I preached, I think Tuesday through Friday, or it might have been Wednesday through Friday, whatever. Raised money, and at the end, the pastor said, we want to present you with this trophy, and he gave me a trophy. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. But so, when people get on and talk about the pastors, there's a whole bunch that goes on. This story can go one or two ways. It can go both ways. It's a two-way street. There's some pastors that have not done right about evangelists, and then there's some evangelists that haven't done right about pastors. There's been times that as an evangelist, I was scheduled to go places and held a space, held a week, held that time to go a certain place, and the pastor never heard from him and called him, and they said, well, your ticket, we got your ticket, and come to find out they hadn't got a ticket, they hadn't got anything, nothing. And so that week I could have been somewhere else. And now, even when you see them now some of them I still see today in the conventions. Won't call your name, but I see them in the conventions, and some of them have been elevated, which is amazing. They've got change now. That's amazing. But I see them in the conventions and stuff, and I'm looking at them, and they hardly want to speak. And I'm saying to myself, I don't have no problem with you. I'm over it. I was over it way back then, but you did it. But we don't like to own that. So it goes both ways. It goes two ways. I was invited years ago to go to California, and I flew out to California. They sent me the information and said that they had the hotel and everything. Oh my God, I got out there. They picked me up, took me to the hotel. When the lady asked me, well, may I help you? I said, I've got reservations. Thought they had paid for the room for what they gave me. And when we got there to look at the room, let me tell you, people, I didn't even get to the room because they never paid for the hotel. So we had to scramble to go find another hotel. I got there to start a revival that Sunday. I think it was Sunday morning. And then Sunday night, the pastor left and told me I'll be back Friday, I think. He went out to run revival somewhere and left me at his church. And it was my first time ever being there. I'd never been at his church before. Left me there all by my lonesome. So, I could tell y'all some stories. You want to hear some stories? I got a few for you. I could write you a book on both ways. And so you have to make it determine whether you're going or not going. And so let me give a little defense on this, even when it comes to contracts. People have problems with, well, they want a contract. They want, listen, if you've been out here a long time in ministry, sometimes you have to do a contract. Now, some of them may go overboard with the stuff they asking for. And I do know some contracts I've seen, I think they go too far. But that's my opinion. But I'm saying to you on some of these things, you have to do some things so you can have something to just know where you're going. Because listen, it's nothing like being thousands of miles away from home and then get there and they don't have a hotel room for you, don't have anything for you. That's an issue. That's a problem. We've been there, we've done that. So when people do contracts, really sometimes maybe they need to go back and look at the contract and restructure it. But sometimes they do those things because of the fact of experiences that they've had where people have taken their monies, where people have said one thing, where people have gotten up in church, and say, we're going to be a blessing to the evangelist tonight. Yeah, being a blessing to the evangelist tonight on a Friday night or Thursday or whatever. We're going to bless the evangelist. They raise an offering in your name and you never get it. Raise it in your name and you never get it. Let me repeat that. Look right here. Raise an offering in your name and you never receive it. So it's easy to say what shouldn't be done if you haven't been there, if you haven't experienced it. But once you experience it, then you understand why some people, I know why they do what they do, because I've been there, done that. I've seen it. I've experienced it. It's happened to me. And so I understand that. So to go or not to go is something that you really need to, sometimes you need to vet. Sometimes you need a checklist. That's the next thing. You need a checklist. You need to know, what is the thing that I need to do, and what is the thing that I'm required to do, or the things that I'm requiring to happen when I go somewhere to minister. I'm almost done. I pray that this is blessing someone. Yeah, they keep your money. You're right, Sister Perry. They do keep your money and keep it. And let me give you one other thing, and I'm almost done. I'm just talking. I want to help somebody. I was running revival one time. Now understand, I wasn't pastoring. I'm full-time evangelist. So I'm just, I'm preaching and I'm raising money, preaching, people getting saved and blessed. And so the pastor says to me, he said, I want you to raise an offering. Thursday night, they raised an offering for me. So he wanted me to raise an offering for him. Okay. I did that. Then Friday night, he said, we're going to raise an offering and we're going to bless you. Great. But then when we get to handle the business, they show me what is raised. And I'm like, okay. Then next thing I know, they said, we're splitting this 3 ways. And I said, wait a minute, say that again. They're splitting this 3 ways. Okay, but what are the 3 ways? He says, the church gonna get their part. The evangelist gonna get their part. And I'm gonna get my part. And so I'm like, and when the person said this to me, you have to understand it was a person, I don't want to go too far about that, but anyway, it was a person that had a little influence in the area they were in at that time. And so they said it's a 3-way thing. And so here I am, an evangelist out on the road and trying to do what's right. And I'm here, and I'm not going to fight with the person as far as verbally going back and forth with them. So what am I supposed to do? So they did it where the 3-way. The pastor got his cut, the church got their cut, and then I got mine. Now the pastor sat there all week, not saying anything negative. He sat there with his legs crossed and looking sharp, but he got a cut. So again, if you want to hear about stories that can justify some of these things, I can tell them to you. I can share with you some stuff that'll be like, are you kidding me? No, I'm not. So sometimes you need to do a checklist. You need to find out what is that you want, what is you supposed to do. This is outside the pulpit. Handle your business. If you got someone that's requesting you then you need to know who's requesting you. And then let me give to the other side, those of you that are evangelists outside of the pulpit. If you're an evangelist and other people are handling your bookings and stuff, then you need to talk with your people to get them to understand maybe who's calling you, or whether how you deal with the people that call for you. So, because sometimes you get a bad rap because of your people. Has nothing to do with you. You may be the sweetest person in the world, but your people got attitudes. Your people leave a bad taste in people's mouths. And so we got to deal with the whole truth of the matter. Sometimes your people leave bad taste. I was inviting someone, and I'm talking about from my pastor side now. I was inviting someone to do a service. And when I called, I didn't talk to them. I talked to their people. And now this is in the city. This is not, they didn't got to fly in to have to get them in the hotel. They're in the city. And when I asked them to come, they told me that they'll come preach for you. And we were doing a 3-night thing, and I only wanted them for 1 night. And they said they'll come for you, but you gotta give them $700. That's their honorarium, $700 for them to come for that one service. Okay. Then they want to know. Me and my wife was laughing about this the other night. Then they want to know, well, if they come, what door we need to send some people out so we can check and find out what door they're gonna come in. And we were laughing because we're like, they're gonna come through the same door I come in. They're gonna come through the same door we come in. So I mean, come on, people. That's some stuff. If even I told some people, I said, if I had thousands of members, some people I wouldn't invite them. I don't care who they are, because some of this stuff is ridiculous. It's crazy. Yeah, I come in, and then when they get there and you place them where they're supposed to be, they people in front of the door like they guarding the president, and almost you as the pastor almost got to show your security to get in your own office. That's foolishness. I said it's foolishness. You ain't got to like me. I ain't trying to get to that place. It's foolishness. If I invited you and you in my office, I ain't showing you no ID to your people to get in my own office. Foolishness. We were inviting someone else, and they said to us, we'll come, but you got to guarantee us $1,500 a service. Sunday morning, Sunday night, Monday, Tuesday, and whatever other days were. And so I respectfully declined. I said, well, we appreciate that. We love your ministry. We'll keep watching you. We'll keep looking at you. But at this time, that's not something we're going to be able to do. So the people that your requests, that deal with your requests and stuff coming in, they got to know how to do things and what to say, and how to approach people, because some people want you genuinely for ministry. They care less about your name and your title. They want their people to be blessed, but the first people they meet are your people, and it's a crazy request. I was inviting someone to one of our meetings, and the bishop wanted me to invite the person. It wasn't my idea. The bishop said, please I want to invite this, see if they'll come. So I made contact with someone I knew that could contact their people. And so eventually I got in contact, with their people. And their people told me in the city, don't have to go. It's not, no long distance drive, just in the city. They told me it'll be $2,500 for them to come to do this service. So I said, well, we're asking them to come, and it's right in the city. And they pastor in the city. Matter of fact, their church, I ain't gonna tell you where their church at, but it wasn't that far from where they were gonna be preaching from. Matter of fact, to get to their church, to get to where they were coming, you had to pass their church to get there. And they said it's gonna be $2,500. And I knew I wasn't going to do that. And so we declined that offer, and we didn't do that. I'm sure the person is a nice person, but their frontline people that they deal with sometimes don't deal with good spirits, with a good attitude. It's almost like people that you call for to pay a bill, or I hope they don't have no lawyers on here. I don't mean to shout y'all out. Not all of y'all are like that, but like lawyers. Sometimes when you call people for bills, or they call you or lawyers or whatever, and they said hello, and you said hello, may I speak to whatever, and they get the name. You said, how you doing today? May I help you? They don't even respond back by saying, I'm doing fine. May I help you? It's like it's just straight to the business. And you saying to yourself, wow, how rude is that? And that's how people are. Sometimes people do that when you calling for these various things. How you doing today? May we help you? How are you doing today? I mean, come on, people. We got to do better than this. That's rude. It really is. It's just downright rude. So people going through these changes. I see y'all laughing. I mean, it's crazy. It's just absolutely nutty of this stuff we got to deal with. And again, I'm not pushing this, but I want to tell you something. I've been doing this 43 years, 40 years full time. I've been on both sides of the aisle. Like in politics, they've been a Democrat and a Republican. I've been an evangelist and a pastor. So I've seen both sides of it. I've seen how both sides are handled. I've experienced both sides, the ups of it and the downs of it. So I'm not talking about something I read in somebody's book. I ain't read this in nobody's book. I experienced this firsthand. And could go on and on. I could talk another hour about stuff that I've experienced on both sides, but I won't do that today. So when we start talking about requests, if you're a person that's got people to book you, understand it's like the usher at the church. The first person that they see, if it's the greeter or the usher at the church, they may never meet you as the pastor. But if the first person they meet is nasty, if the first person they meet is whatever, then they reflect you. They reflect me. So if the greeter is nasty, they assume that they got that from the church. If the usher is nasty, they assume that that's how this church is. That people in this church not friendly. So here we are. We got to use some wisdom outside of the pulpit. We don't use enough. We don't deal with these things. This is the conversation that most people don't like to have because they don't want to offend anybody. I'm not trying to offend you, but I'm not trying to act like it don't happen either. All of this stuff happens. We got to deal with conflict better. We got to stay off social media. If you don't have nothing to say and it's gonna cause stuff, stay off of here. Leave it alone. If you go into revival, go to it. If you went there and they didn't have everything that you thought they were going to have, at least you got there. Because let me explain something, Lord. I'm trying to get out of here. But let me explain something to you. Let me help you out. If you go to a church and they had 50 people in your revival, let's say they had 100, and you were there for 2 nights. Let's say you raised an offering. They flew you in. They put you in a hotel. You raised an offering, or they raised it, or whoever. Let's say for 2 days, they turned around and gave you $2,000, which represents $1,000 for each service. I don't care if they had 100 people. If I was the pastor and you left my church and I heard in the wind that you down my church and talked about what I don't have, and I just gave you $2,000 for 2 nights, you will never, and I repeat, never come back to my church again. I don't care how big I get, you won't be on the list to come. Never. Never, I said. You won't be on the list to come because you would have disrespected my church and the people that go there that came and gave their hard-earned dollars to bless you, and you went out and talked about them like that. And then I would like for you to tell me, since you're so important, where is it that you can go and stay up for 45 minutes without being a motivational speaker or somebody with a name? Especially those of you that coming up that's trying to be something. That stay up on the floor for 45 minutes, maybe an hour, and then go and can sleep all day in your hotel room. And then walk away with $2,000. Tell me what other profession that you can do, not what other people are doing, that you can do and go make $1,000 a day in a short period of time. I'm waiting. I'm waiting. I am waiting. We got to stop this foolishness. You went, they bless you, take it and go about your business. Some of you so caught up in trying to get to the big church that you disrespect the small church. In the big church, the big church. Let me talk to you for a minute. In the big church, in the small church, you want to send your people back and count the money. You want to send your people back, find out how much you raised. You want to break down what do we raise? What's my part? That's in the small church. But in the big church, they give you what they want to give you. They don't give you no breakdown at all. And you don't say nothing because you want to go back. But you want to disrespect people with smaller churches and put all these crazy demands and do all this stuff. I don't do it at my church. It don't happen. You come in my church talking about I want 20 people to give $100. The first person that's gonna be giving $100 is gonna be you. You need 19. You don't need 20. You need 19 others, cause you the first one. Because if you're not giving the $100, then I'm gonna take your $100 off the top because that don't count. So if you got 20, you only got 19 because you should have gave yours first. Yeah, I know, Sister Irvin, $5,000 a night and all that stuff. Listen, you know how we can stop this foolishness? I'm gonna help you out. I'm not telling people not to get their money. I'm just saying some of this stuff is overboard. But you know how we can stop some of this craziness? Stop inviting these people to come. I had an interesting conversation, and I'm going to be done with this when I say this. I had an interesting conversation with a pastor here, a friend of mine. He pastors a big mega church here, built it from the ground, built this great campus. And he was sharing, he used to have all these conferences. So he was sharing with me one day, we went to visit his house, him and his wife on the Christmas holidays. And he was saying, we were talking about money and finances in church. And this is what he said to me. He said, there are a lot of guys and people that used to come to me. He said, I don't bring them to me anymore because they had these great demands. And he's a mega church. He said, all these great demands and all this money. He said, so I stopped having all those things and inviting them. He said, and now since they don't have a lot of people inviting them like they used to, he said, what they do now, he said, they've been calling me saying, can I come by and preach for you? He's like, no. And then he said that they start saying, he said, no, because I don't have that kind of money to give you like I used to. And they like, oh man, you won't take all that? I'll just come for you. You ain't got to worry about that. So you got to always remember, you can be here today, but somewhere down the line, time just gets all of us. And some of these people that's doing all this stuff now, there's going to be a time you're going to look back in some place that you turned down. You're going to be wishing that they will invite you to hold a mic to say something. If it ain't nothing but to testify. Okay? So don't go to a church and then leave it and disrespect it. You went, and if you didn't like what was going on, you should have left the first night. Don't stay the whole week, get the money, and then go out and dog them. Because you never know who's there that you talking to is going to go back and tell them exactly what you said. All right, I'm going to quit, y'all. Let me stop. Oh, my God. Oh, Lord. Thank you so much. I see y'all comments. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's true. Some of them won't come for less than $5,000. That's a disrespect to the Lord. I understand professionalism, but what about God's taking care of ministers and ministries? Yes, that's right. Your motivation should always be spiritual. So true. There's a lot of things that we got to deal with, and a lot of this stuff has gotten out of hand. It reflects the leader, whether it's an artist or a pastor. It's just a lot of this stuff is out of hand, and we're not using no wisdom in the pulpit or out of the pulpit. And I'm just dealing with out of the pulpit today. There's no wisdom with this stuff, and everyone's scared to address it because no one wants to be. People ain't gonna like me. They ain't gonna invite me to stuff. Listen, I would love to be invited, but understand, I got a church to preach at every Sunday. So I'm not looking for a pulpit. I'm not looking for a pulpit to preach in. I got one. Anything else is a blessing, and it's a door open, and I thank God for it. But every Sunday, 52 Sundays out of a year, I have a pulpit to preach in. So I can tell you the truth, and don't worry about whether I got somewhere to preach or not, because I'm not looking for it. If it happens, great. But somebody's got to deal with the truth of these things and let us know we've got to conduct ourselves in and out of the pulpit. All right? That's an important thing. And now let me give my last thought on the thing that, yeah, you're right. The local churches need to shut this thing down. We need to stop this. That's right. You're right. We need to reformat some of this stuff. Some of this stuff we need to do differently. We need to do it differently. We don't need to do things the way we've been doing them. And people are getting hurt through this. Now, let me give you my take on the thing that recently just happened with the video posting of possibly the pastor going to the room or whatever. I don't know if that happened. If it did, then it is never in order for anybody to go into a room, whether the person is there or not, whether they've checked in or not. But I do know there are people that go in and put fruit baskets and stuff in the room. So I've seen that happen. I've done it before, and the person wasn't here. I may have done it before their flight came in or whatever. But if they had a team of people to do that, that's a different story. Sometimes you can leave stuff at the desk or whatever. I don't know. But now here's my take on this whole issue and this whole matter. And I have no dog in this fight, and I'm not trying to get to no one's conference, so it doesn't matter to me. But I will say to you that I believe, is my opinion, that this whole incident could have been handled a different way. Should have been handled a different way and not played out on social media. whether whoever was wrong, the first thing would have been to resolve this behind the scene before we got it to social media status. Because at the end of the day, I keep saying this, we keep missing the point. It doesn't matter whether it's this situation or whether it's somebody else's situation, whether it's my situation. The thing that we keep missing is this, is that at the end of the day, when the world and people that don't go to church look at all this stuff, they don't single us out by name, denomination, who we are. Some of them don't even know who we are. All they see is this is church. And because they see it only as church, they gives them another excuse to say, that's why I don't do church. That's why I don't go to church. Because as church, we haven't learned to do it the Bible way first before we put it all over the social media platform. And people are looking, and I believe we're going to be a stumbling block to people. I believe the blood's going to be on our hands. Because with all this Holy Ghost we got, and all this anointing, and all God shows us about everybody else, he should show us the way to do and handle things that will glorify him, and his name will be exalted. That's my thoughts. All right, y'all, I'm through. Thank y'all so much for joining me. Oh, I pray that y'all share this with somebody. Do me a favor, before we get out of here, please share this with somebody. Please share it. And let's get this shared today with somebody on today. And I know it'll be a blessing as we share it. Share with your friends, share with somebody in ministry. I've been on longer than I wanted to do today, but I pray and trust that it'll bless you. Let's pray. Father, in Jesus' name, I pray, God, for everyone that's watching. I pray for every minister. I pray for everyone that's in ministry. God, and you know that you've called us to do, whether large or small. We are in ministry to do your will and your purpose and your call. This is really about you and not about us. And I pray that you would touch each and every one of us. I pray that you will anoint us. I pray, God, that you would cause us to have wisdom to be able to handle those things in and out of the pulpit. I pray that you would lay hands on us, give us favor and blessings, and cause us, God, to stand in the place, oh, God, that we can glorify your name and represent your name and represent the kingdom, oh, God, the way that we should. I thank you now for doing it. Thank you, God. We ask for wisdom in and out of the pulpit. We pray, God, that all matters and things will be resolved, and that you will be glorified, that souls will be saved, and people will come into the kingdom. And we'll give your name glory, honor, and praise. In Jesus' name we pray. Thank God. Amen. Well, I pray that it's blessed you. Thank you so much for joining me again. I've got to get out of here. I want to say thank you for joining me. Do me a favor again. Please share it with somebody as we go today. And once again, we'll be back on next Wednesday with Let's Talk Ministry with Pastor Dennis Martin. Go to the website. You can follow me, of course, on Facebook. You can follow me on Twitter. You can follow me on YouTube. And you can follow me on my website, dlmartin.org. That's dlmartin.org. Go there. You can email me at rrcdmartin@gmail.com. I would love to hear from you. May the Lord bless you, and may the Lord keep you is my prayer. Thank you once again for joining me.
Thanks for joining Pastor Martin. Visit us at www.dlmartin.org or email us at rrcdmartin@gmail.com.